Buy to let, thatched, commercial. We're your high street insurance brokers for all types of insurance. Avoid faceless internet firms.
House Insurance, do it face to face.
See Neil and the friendly team at High Street Selsey.
House Insurance, do it face to face.
Or call Selsey 606 552.
Hello again, this is Mary Kennedy welcoming you to this week's programme. First we have an interview with June Thair, who's going to talk about craft fairs. Then Giles has some gardening tips and an idea for Christmas presents with a gardening theme. Lynn's recipe this week is for a delicious cranberry, orange and port sauce. The Essentials song this week is If I Was a Rich Man. Ellis Berg is back with another story about Adam Crabster. And our thought for the day this week comes from Alistair Hornell. And now our What's On spot. On December the 13th at 2 p.m, Selsey U3A have their Christmas party. This vibrant organisation runs 25 different interest groups and is always open to new members. Selsey and Seal Island WI groups continue to meet monthly. Book early for Cloud9 Pantomime on the 27th and 28th of December. And Selsey Golf Club will be holding a Christmas bingo on the 14th of December. Selsey Football Club are holding their night on the 17th of December, plus a Children's Day at the club on the 14th of December. The Venture Club does a great job of transporting our people. They always need volunteer drivers and office staff. Mind have their Christmas party on the 13th of December between 9 and 12 at Selsey Centre. And the Snack Shack is open every Monday and Tuesday evening for young people, and the Zone Youth Club meets every Wednesday evening at 6:30 p.m. at Selsey Cricket Club. For further details, go to Selsey Information Exchange. So over to June Thair.
Anybody who knows June Thair knows that she's a crafty person. I don't mean to say that she's dishonest, but she has always been involved in crafts. And she's recently been involved in the craft fair at East Beach Evangelical Church. June, tell me about your love of crafts.
Well, when I was a child, I was always ill, unfortunately. Or fortunately, I'm not quite sure which. But that meant staying in bed for long periods of time. And people who were trying to keep me in bed kept finding me things that I might be doing that would keep me quiet for 5 minutes. So I read a lot of books that people gave me that were really for grown-ups, which was quite fun. And I also had to learn to knit, to sew, because my grandmother was Irish. And as far as she was concerned, if you could knit, sew, cook and clean house, you were fit to be married. But then somebody, kind soul, bought me a box of coloured pencils. And my grandmother used to iron carrier bags, and I used to draw on them. Then I decided that the best thing to do with wool was to make funny things with it rather than knit socks, which were boring. And then I decided that if I sewed things together, pieces of scrap material, I could make animals. And it just went on from there. And now I can't see a new craft without I don't want to try.
Right, well, for the benefit of all those who may be listening, what's a craft?
A craft is something that you make with your brain and your hands.
So, could it be a painting?
Yes.
Could it be a photograph?
Yes.
Could it be a sculpture?
Yes.
What about embroidery?
Yes.
Oh, come on, give me one or two more.
It is embroidery, there is making toys, there is cooking is a craft. If you think about making a beautiful cake for someone's birthday and then decorating, that's a craft too.
Okay.
It's endless things are crafts. You might grow plants and put them in rather nice pots and sell them. You know, potting, that's a craft.
So that's pottery, throwing pots.
Yes.
Okay. So almost anything you do with your hand then can be a craft?
Yes. With your brain too.
Okay. So what about people who make birdhouses?
Yes, that's a craft.
Or bird tables. And
that's a craft. That's woodwork.
Yeah. So rabbit houses?
Yes.
All right. So the most recent craft fair that you had at East Beach Church, what was on display there?
Well, there were various things, and it was in fact all ladies. So we had a lot of what I call the home crafts, which I'm very proud of us ladies and our home craft. We had beautiful knitted things, we had beautiful sewn things. We had a young lady who took the most wonderful photograph and then did exciting things with them, and her mother who made the most beautiful cards. We had a young lady of 16 who took old and broken jewellery apart and made the prettiest jewellery you've ever seen, very wantable jewellery. And her mother had come with her and was busily promoting her in that direction. And of course our ladies at East Beach Evangelical Church, like the adverts say, make exceedingly good cakes. So we had those.
Yeah.
And we also had pickles and sauces made by another exciting lady who comes to East Beach, and her daughter-in-law who made beautiful soaps.
Oh, okay.
And another one of our parishioners' daughter who was a painter. In fact, there were 2 painters there, 2 artists. So, just about everything we had. And quite apart from that, we all had a jolly good time.
Okay. So, tell me, so the advantage of a craft fair is what? In fact, why do you hold a craft fair? That may sound a really silly question, but I've always felt that if you are determined to do something as well as you can, that there's not a lot of point in doing it just for yourself. It needs to be shared with other people. And it's an audience, isn't it?
Yes, well, it's an audience, and it's also meeting like-minded people, because I can guarantee you that any person that does any craft will understand what I'm talking about when I'm talking about my craft.
Even if it's two entirely different crafts?
Yes, even if it's entirely different crafts. Because there is something in our brains that the good Lord has given us which makes us want to do. You see, somebody who makes rabbit hutches, in fact I know of somebody who makes rabbit hutches who makes them look like little castles.
Really?
Yes. So I think that is what it is. It is sharing it with the general public, and therefore maybe creating new crafters, and sharing it with your fellow crafters who understand and are just as eccentric as you are.
What crafts do you engage in?
Well, start with the home crafts. Apart from cooking, which I'm not very good at, because I usually wander away and do something else. I knit, sew, crochet, embroider, make clothes, make toys. I sculpt. I used to carve, but I can't do that anymore. I paint. I'm an artist. I do illustration. Gosh.
Well, you've got a lot of crafty attributes. So, what about Mr. Thair? Is he aware of crafts, or does he engage in crafts himself?
Not directly, but in actual fact he is a craft person in as much as he creates gardens.
Okay.
And
so the garden's his pride and joy?
Yes. He's an excellent gardener and has, in every house that we've ever lived in, has created a beautiful garden. He's on garden number 5 at the moment.
Okay. Do you think this is the last garden, or do you think there's one more to go?
Well, I think John would probably say this is definitely the last garden. If we moved again, he would make another one.
Really? Would he make a garden out of a window box if he moved into sheltered accommodation?
Absolutely. He'd probably make one on the dining table.
Right. Now, as well as bringing craftspeople together, does it all... I noticed that you hold your crafts fairs not long before Christmas. Does this present people with a wonderful opportunity to buy Christmas presents?
Well, I think so, because nowadays when you go shopping and you look around at the things, you, I believe, find that most of the stores are stocking things which are vaguely the same as everybody else.
Yeah.
But of course, if you go to a craft fair, you've got however number of people that are there, crafters, you've got that number of new ideas and different ideas.
So it's a total diversity.
Yes, yes.
You have one, at East Beach Church, you have one craft fair a year, don't you?
Yes, we do.
Do you try that in with other craft fairs? Or the people who exhibit or show at your fair, do they show at other fairs?
Oh yes, that's where I met most of them.
Really?
Yes.
So how many, if you were to, could you go to a different craft fair every month?
Oh yes.
So how do you find out they're on?
Ah, well, you look assiduously at the local newspaper. Of course, if you're clever, you can go online.
Yeah.
And if you put in craft fairs, you'll get a surprise how many there are.
Really?
How many there are. Even in Selsey itself, there are a great many craft fairs.
Okay.
Almost one a month, I would say.
Really?
Mm.
And do some craft fairs are geared to a specific range of crafts, or are they always diverse?
It depends where they're held, of course. It depends where they're held.
Okay.
The WI do almost everything.
Yeah.
They're quite amazing, the things they get up to. And most organisations have what I call crafters in their organisation. So therefore, not everybody, even if you had a whole hall full of knitters, if you had 10 tables, you'd have 10 different sorts of knitters.
Are craft fairs an opportunity for people who are thinking of taking up a craft to go and have a look and see what they might like to involve themselves in? Yes,
and I think that because crafters are very chatty,
yeah,
and like to mix with people, and we also want companionship. We also want more crafters.
Yeah.
Because the more of us there are, perhaps we'll take over the world. No, the fact is that it is a very loving way to connect with other people.
Okay. So, if I want to follow the crafts, I've got to go and look in the local newspaper and see where the craft fairs are being held, and then go along and have a look myself.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you're thinking about taking anything up, you should go to a craft fair, talk to the crafters, because we can talk people to death, we really can. And then you should go forth and find yourself a society and join it immediately.
Okay, June, thank you very much. And good luck with your craft fair.
Thank you.
And now Giles with his gardening tips.
We got Giles back in the studio. Giles, what have you got for us about the garden this week?
Before I venture into the garden, I'm going to just say a little thing. Out in the countryside, there are still a few elderberries and a few hips and haws remaining on the hedges, which is good because it's giving our birds a late meal. And also, the robins are getting a bit stroppy now. They can be very territorial, as you probably know. And they are starting to fight a bit with each other for the few remaining insects that are around.
Yeah.
So if you see them having a scrap, you'll know why, because they're feisty little things, robins.
They are, aren't they?
They don't look it and they don't appear it, but they are.
Yeah. Do you think the redbreast is to disguise the wounds?
Yeah, I've not thought of that one. It sounds very possible, actually.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, that's very possible. Good idea. And out in the country, especially coming from Ireland, I do it. It's more prevalent there. It's a darker yellow, and more prevalent. But over here, anyway, gorse is nice to see out and about because it's flowering, which is good. Again, at this time of year, it's good to see that.
Yeah.
And there is a saying that if gorse is out of flower, then love is out of fashion.
Really?
That is a fact. That's not a fact. I mean, a saying. So in other words, gorse never stops.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is so good. The other little thing in the hedgerows is we're all looking for little things that might show spring is on the way. And The wild honeysuckle actually is daring towards the end of this month quite often to put out a few little leaves.
Really?
In the hedges.
Uh-huh.
So that's a little, we're always grasping at little things.
Yeah.
And that is something to think about. Regarding the garden or what to do with the garden, I've an idea. This is just an idea. Anyone wants to give someone a present for Christmas, get a frost-proof pottery container and then plant it up with a mini shrub,
Yeah.
i.e. a dwarf honeysuckle, witch hazel, corkscrew hazel or a dwarf conifer, and then to give it a bit more colour, underplant it for extra colour, in other words, with some dwarf daffs, narcissa or tulips, plus winter pansies, violas, primroses and ornamental ivies.
That'll look.
And that is a lovely little gift which won't cost much.
Yeah.
If people want to do a little gift to give themselves.
Right.
So that's just an
That's the
idea.
thing. It's a beautiful show at Christmas.
It is, and of course it'll last on. Yeah, it'll keep going. All that's right. It'll be there for Christmas and onwards. Yeah, exactly. Okay. The other thing is leave any people with spare ground now. Leave it roughly dug in the veg patch or wherever it might be, because the birds can then pick it over at this time. They're looking for everything and find worms and also any pests that might be in the soil, including slugs, snails, and vine weevils, etc.
Yeah.
So leave the soil loose wherever possible, and also when you're doing the soil, we're talking back to robins. You'll have one following you, as they always do, won't you? Sitting on your spade nearly.
Yeah.
And the other thing we've got to talk about or to say is that look forward to now is the Winter Solstice, which comes I think 21st, which is great. Yeah. I think we all look forward to that. The dark evenings gradually start going the other way, so that's something to really look forward to. The other little thing is that this time you do not water any people with cacti indoors. Don't give it any water whatsoever.
Well, none at all.
None at all. Let them go dry.
Okay, yeah.
Let them go totally dry for the minute. Another little thing is keep a little notebook, a gardener's notebook I call it, and then record in that all your successes and all your failures, and then you can refer back to that when you're planning for the next time, and you think, right, this, and so just keep a little garden notebook when you're doing these odd jobs.
I've never done that. I can see the value of it immediately. I've made some terrible mistakes, and I can remember afterwards thinking, I know I did this before. And the book and the notebook would have reminded me, wouldn't it?
It would indeed. Yeah. And just to briefly, people tend to, obviously the fairy lights will be going up. Well, some are probably up by now, but what I think is a nice thing is, I know some people put them outside, but I think the nicest thing to do, if you're going to do it outside, if you've got one, where they look best, is in an outside conifer.
Yeah.
Rather than in any other tree.
Yeah.
Not everyone's obviously got a conifer to do it with. Yeah. But that is.
Well, maybe they should plant one.
They're very easy to plant, and especially some of them grow quick a lot. Yeah, but anyway, that's a good idea, I think. And on that note, I think we'll. Oh, there is one little thing I forgot to say. If anyone wants to goes to show, like showing onions.
Yeah.
Sow some now. Right now, this time of year.
Really?
Some ordinary main crop onions, and you'll get far bigger and better bulbs in next year.
Okay.
That's it for now, yeah.
Thanks a lot, John.
We'll enjoy go and do the fairy lights.
Okay, thank you very much, John.
And Lynn's recipe.
Right, I've been tapping in rice again with Lynn Reeve, and last week she was telling us all about how to make trifle. So this week, we're going to learn about what?
Well, coming up to Christmas now in a big way, we're going to learn about cranberry, orange and port sauce. Now this is a port sauce to die for, absolutely is to die for with your Christmas dinner, and the whole house smells of it when you're cooking it, so leave it till Christmas morning if you want to, although it's better done.
This is going to be what you put with the turkey, is it?
You can put it with your turkey, even better with your cold meat, actually, even better, but it's a beautiful sauce. And for this, you're going to want 225 grams of fresh cranberries. So you'll get them in any big supermarket, the fresh ones.
Okay.
All right. You want 4 whole cloves, 1 whole cinnamon stick, 1 onion peeled, all right, and minced. if you can, but if not, very, very finely chopped. You don't want great big lumps of onion in this. 1 clove of garlic, also minced or very finely chopped or put through your garlic press. 100 mils of red wine vinegar, 100 mils of port wine, 250 grams of caster sugar, juice and zest of 1 orange, and if you don't know what the zest is, that's just the very fine rind on the orange, all right? Salt and freshly cracked black pepper, so just salt and pepper out of your meals. So we're going to start with peeling and finely dicing the onions, mincing the garlic and fresh ginger, and mix that all together, all right? Place all of the other ingredients, apart from the orange zest, into a medium-sized saucepan and season lightly with the salt and the fresh cracked pepper.
Okay.
Bring it to the simmer over a low heat, stirring it, and cook the sauce until a thickened but drip consistency. This takes about 20 minutes. So the sauce is just beginning to thicken, but it's not so thick that it's going to plop off the spoon. All right. Then you can add your orange zest, remove it from the heat and leave it to cool. Don't forget it will thicken as it cools, so don't let it get too thick as you're along the way, all right?
Yeah, okay.
You can pour it into a sterilised jar and you can seal it down and keep it for months and months if you want. Right. We talked, didn't we, about how to sterilise jars before? And it makes roughly about 250 mils of a beautiful cranberry port sauce, wonderful with your turkey. You can use the leftover sauce on cold turkey or goose sandwiches, and you could layer them with cranberry sauce and lots of watercress.
Really?
And it's gorgeous. So your turkey sandwiches, your thickened sauce and your watercress on the top. Or try stirring a spoonful of it into a casserole or game soup. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. And it does make the house smell very Christmassy.
Really?
Yeah.
That sounds wonderful. Thanks very much. And we look forward to hearing from you next week.
The essentials.
Soul gonna make me whole. I want all the best threads, gonna look drop dead. $1 million from my head to my toes. I want every toy for man and boy. I want to savor every flavor. Outside, gonna take me where I need to go. I wanna find white wine to soothe my mind. I wanna find green you've ever seen. If I was a rich man, if I was a rich man.
Ellis with his story.
This is another story about Adam Crabster and the fairies. Of course, his wife was furious. Well, she would be when the gold she was promised turned out to be nothing but a lot of old seashells. "What do you think you'd be doing, Adam? You said you'd sold all those lobster pots to a trader in the market. And you said he'd given you money in advance for more pots. What's the story, Adam? What's the truth, you old liar?" Adam squirmed. How could he tell his old woman that the fairies had kidnapped him from under the tree outside the Spotted Cow and taken him to their castle at Church Norton? She'd allow he'd had a couple of pints. "Three's more like," she yelled, and then fallen asleep. He'd admit to the bear. But the fairies? Not likely. Well, there was one way to find out if she believed him. So he told her the truth. A painful business for Adam, who was very well known for his doubtful veracity. How can I put it? I only had a little sleep, and then I was stolen by the fairies, you see. You were what? Stolen by the fairies, woman. Right. You were stolen by the fairies. All right, tell me about it. I like a good story, and you're famous for it. Go on. Will you listen, woman? It's the truth, this time, and you better believe me. Adam, you can stop. I'm beginning to think you've had something nasty happen to you, and I think I know who can help you. I don't need... Shut up! I'm going to see my Auntie Mabel. Oh, no, not Auntie Mabel. Auntie Mabel will know how to sort out those fairies. You mean you believe in fairies? You were calling me a liar just now. Oh, what can old Mabel do to help? She's nothing but an old witch. She's not a witch, madam. She's a wise woman, and she knows about fairies. A wise woman really is someone who knows about fairies, and a lot more besides. She knows about changeling babies and goblins and pixies, and how you must show them respect, and about herbs and simples and when to pick them, and, more important, when not to pick them. Auntie Mabel was one of those women. And folk used to ask for help when their chickens died or their babies looked a bit odd. She never charged, but folk gave her presents and made sure she never went short of food or fuel. And they paid a special respect to her cat, Grimalkin, who kept a special eye on her. Auntie Mabel asked a few questions, like how big they were and what did they look like and where was their castle and what happened while he was there. Old Adam told her. They're about 3.5 feet tall and pig ugly, and they live in that mound in Church Norton. They keep rabbits in lobster pots, light their plates with glowworms, and play games about lying. I won, he added with simple pride. Did you eat any food while you were there? Said Auntie Mabel. Only some cakes and a drop of ale. They didn't offer much. Only a bag of gold for the pots. They were, I don't know, sort of jolly. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, you've really done it. Once you take their food, they got you in their grip forever. And you'd never better not call them, here she whispered, pig ugly. They'll torment you for the rest of your life. Just as well you came to see me, though. I'm not sure how I'm going to get you out of this one. It all comes to the drink, Adam, and the lying. It's about time you started behaving yourself. Your poor wife has enough to put up with. All right, said Adam. But what you going to do? It's what you're going to do, said Auntie Mabel. This is my advice. First, you've got to understand what fairies hate. They hate cold iron and running water. I thought that was witches, said Adam. Think what you like, Adam, but you better listen to me, said Auntie Mabel. And they don't like the sound of bells, especially church bells. 4-leaf clovers are helpful, and St. John's wort, and clothes worn inside out, so you want to do that and carry a sword. And find out any of their names, but Be careful, they're even better than you are. Better liars than you are. And tell you someone else's name. Adam thought for a moment and they said, "Do you think there's any chance of getting my gold? After all, they stole my pots, didn't they? And the seashells weren't much caught." "You be thankful that's all that's happened. Now listen to me. What we've got to do is to make sure you don't get into any more trouble. Just keep those bits of advice in your head and don't get drunk on market day. Or any other day either. Go off home, Adam, while I talk to your wife. She'll need to keep an eye on you, and I can tell her how to do it." Off went Adam, grumbling to himself about fairies and gold and iron and four-leaved clovers, and occupied his time gathering his withes for a few more pots until his wife came home. "Well, what did Auntie Mabel have to say then? Some sort of nonsense, I'll be bound." "You just mind what you say about Auntie Mabel. She'll be the saving of you from the fairies, and don't you forget it. Keep to what she said and there'll be no trouble, and mind you don't try getting any of that gold back. Them fairies are craftier than you are, and I don't want to have to put out milk and good clothes for them to leave us alone. And before you say any more, that's what Auntie Mabel says will happen." The next few days were spent getting the pots ready for market. Not much was said about anything except, of course, about Adam's habit of drinking on his way home. Adam carried on his usual way and made enough pots for market and a few over for his mates. He filled his barrow with the pots and set off for Chichester, and of course it was a hot day, so when he got to the Spotted Cow he stopped for a pint of beer, and as usual he had a second and a third. By now Adam was determined, quite determined, that fairies or no fairies, he was going to have a sleep under the tree outside the pub. But he kept one leg over the barrow in case anybody tried to make off with his pots. Adam awoke in the fairy castle, surrounded by glowworms and baby rabbits in his lobster pots. This time he was ready for them. He was going to get his gold, and he reckoned he could do it by playing his rules instead of theirs. When they offered him fairy cakes and heather ale, he said, "No thanks," politely. When they suggested a game of lying, the favourite game for both Adam and the fairies, he said, "In a minute." When they asked him about his pots, he said, "Ah, now you're talking business. What happened last time? Remember the bag of gold, do you? That wasn't fair. Do fairies keep their word? No, they don't." He thumped his fist on a toadstool and waved a four-leaved clover at them, expecting them to back off in fear. Well, they laughed and laughed. "Do you think that's any good, you silly mortal? St. John's wort might have worked, or even shaking a cowbell. But if you want to go home this side of the next 100 years, you'll have to do better than that." They started dancing and singing, making enough pandemonium to wake old Father Neptune himself. "All right," Adam shouted. "You can't blame me for trying. All you lot had to do was to give me my gold, and you could have kept these pots for your thumping rabbits, and then good riddance to the lot of you." There was a sudden silence. The fairies slowly advanced on Adam. There was a smell of danger, a terrible danger that only fairies can bring. Adam knew that he was lost unless... "I'm sorry," he cried. "I didn't mean any harm. The clover and that, well, it was what was told by the wise woman." The fairies halted in their advance. "Did you say wise woman? Which wise woman?" This worried Adam. He didn't want to get Auntie Mabel into trouble with this lot. They looked a little less menacing. Could he risk it? "Auntie Mabel!" he yelled. There was a roar, not of anger, but of laughter, not of ridicule as before, but of joy. "Why didn't you say so before? She's so good to us, she's almost a fairy herself." Adam was about to say, "But better looking," but stopped himself just in time while he was winning. "Listen, old Adam, have a bite and a sup with us and a few games, and then we'll take you home. And you can thank Auntie Mabel." He had his drinks, And the next thing he knew, he was being shaken by the shoulder and facing a furious wife. "You've been at it again, haven't you? Getting drunk and losing your pots to your fairies." "Oh, was it fairies? Was it fairies this time?" "What story are you going to tell me this time? Did you get mixed up with a gang of pot stealers? Or did they catch fire while you lit your pipe?" She was really angry. She even forgot that he didn't smoke. Adam sat up and found a bag lying on his chest. He hefted it and knew what it was. Silently, he stood up and made his way into the kitchen, all this time being followed by his angry wife. "Well, what have you got to say? Don't tell me it's another bag of seashells." Adam never said a word. Opening the bag, he tipped out the contents. A stream of gold sovereigns clattered onto the kitchen table. His wife fell silent and plunged her fingers into the money. "The fairies?" "Yes." "Auntie Mabel?" "Yes." "You see, it ain't what you know. It's who you know that matters. Now you can go shopping and be happy." Adam went outside and picked up the withers for his next lot of pots.
A thought for the day.
We got Alistair Hall, the Indirector Minister for East Beach Evangelical Church here again, for our thought for the day.
Talk is cheap, they say, and actions speak louder than words. But some words, even little words, can cost a lot. For example, to say, "I'm sorry," takes a fair bit of humility to admit you were wrong. But it's so much better than spinning some tale to cover things up. It's even more costly to say, "I forgive you." There's no worries if it's a small fault, but if there's been a major betrayal, forgiving costs. Someone who has cheated you out of money, perhaps, or a partner's unfaithfulness, or someone who has hurt, maybe even killed your child. To forgive is costly. Of course it is. God shows us how costly it is for him to forgive us, and his actions speak louder than any words. He actually absorbed the full impact of all the wrong that humanity has done into himself when Jesus died on the cross. That was the cost to God of forgiveness, the death of his Son. Forgiveness doesn't come cheap, but it is freely available. I wonder if we have the humility to say, "I'm sorry," to other people or to God.
Thank you, Alistair.